Am I pronouncing that right? Teriak?
Yeah, Teriak.
Hey, man.
I just
What's
wanted
up?
to say, huge fan of your work. Kind of know you through the Rob stuff. Kind of been looking into it. Brilliant stuff all
Thanks,
across the
buddy.
board. Especially the limiting principle to the Liberals. I think that exposes the tyranny wide out. In terms of the debate, I think it was the perfect example of being unapologetically American. You know what I mean? Because you have you have your typical kind of like socialists and communists just doing the whole co-fest. There's the whole like right wing aspect of like the ANCAPs that I've seen kind of come in as well. They're trying to do their thing, but even from the so-called centrists, like their whole thing is that Ryan didn't run away from the argument. So if Ryan directly addressed the prompt, just to be 100% clear, and even when you said they didn't even engage with the syllogism, the glaring one was premise 5, where it's like there's not going to be any negative repercussions from this. Which, as you try to get Pisco to agree to his own point, where it's or the Democrats' point, multiple different clips covered on Rob's stream and your stream as well. These clips them saying, just pack it with 4. Don't even. I think the direct quote from Carville was like, "Don't even tell people that you're going to do it. Just do it."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So in terms of like that aspect, I just want to come up and say like amazing job. Like I said, like you handled that like I said, a true American, unapologetic. Go fuck yourself, essentially. Just a quick question I have you. Like, what would you say your political philosophy is?
So I guess it's hard to say these days because I'm certainly on the right. What I try to do is compare myself to Rob because we collaborate together, and Rob's like populist right, and I'm what I'd call reasonable right, which is like the way I describe it is populists like Rob are all about firing up the bulldozer and trying to find institutions that they think are corrupt and that need to be demolished because of the problems they're in. My primary interest is in rebuilding. Like, what is it? Like if we're going to say, for example, the education system has serious problems, what do we do about it? Like, because the problem, if you just knock it down and you don't build anything new, then it's going to get infiltrated by all the same motherfuckers who caused the problem in the first place, right? So part of the reason Rob and I put that show together is I think a growing understanding between us that you need both. You need people who are going to get fired up, and then you need people who are going to do structural reform and kind of like get in the trenches and do the rebuilding effort. So that's kind of where I view myself these days. And look, I said this to Rob, and I said this to on the last show. In a saner world, Rob and I would be like political enemies. We have really serious differences of opinion. Like, in a saner world, Rob and I would be arguing against each other. But right now, we're just not in that world, man. So it's like, it's right now, there's a common purpose, and that's the important bit.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that I've noticed as well. There's a lot of people who are kind of like so sick and tired of the system that they just want to destroy it all down. But that plays into the communist hands. That's why I keep trying to point out to a lot of people on the right wing that like this aspect of like capitalism, that's not just a kind of a winning strategy against the likes of communism, because anarcho-capitalists or global capitalists, like they want to destroy the state. So you losing trust in your own institutions is actually a win for what would never be the communist or the stateless society, or utopia as they try to brand it off as would be. So like that's just definitely something to look out in terms of the right wing as well. There's particular people that will kind of come in and they'll sound right wing, they'll have all like the talking points down, but their end goal is to destroy down the state. And when you look at the American system, how it's set up, like there's a reason why a lot of other governments have basically just copied your system, because it has so much checks and balances in it. And it basically tries to filter and prevent the tyranny of the majority, which is one of the main problems with democracy. But again, just wanted to come on and say, Rob, absolutely, Ryan, sorry, absolutely amazing debate. Ignore all the haters and keep up the great work.
Hey, appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate you, Ryan.
Gen Z is here, and Gen Z has a big debate coming up this week with Pisco and Josiah and our buddy Desert Druid. So Gen Z, welcome back, man. You've been MIA. You've been out of the fray for a while.
I felt like Thanos at the end of Infinity War. I'd gone to my farm. I had restored peace and balance to the universe, and now getting pulled back in. But it's okay. I'm fired up. and happy to be back. But yeah, thanks for having me. I won't be long. Everyone waiting. Just want to come say hey. Yeah, y'all can see I got a new update. Pretty much every book I own is sitting right there to make me look smart.
Yeah. And you I don't know. Do you want me to shout out your professional accomplishments or no?
Oh yeah, go for it.
So Gen Z, while he was MIA from this little corner of the internet, opened his own law firm, which is really cool. So if you got a legal issue, well, state specific, of course, but you know who to call. This is it's very cool that he put up his own shingle. That's awesome. I think that's on some level, that's like every lawyer's dream. Like I think a lot of us, like when we went to law school, we were like, oh man, I could like hang a shingle and like just kind of like do my thing. And I am endlessly envious that you pulled it off. So that's very cool.
Well, and there's no single way that's the right way to do it. But if there was, I think the way I did it was probably right, to go be a DA and get everyone to love me in the community. And then when I open up my own firm, it's like every firm in town is referring cases to me. So I'm just overwhelmed with work, which is why I'm actually hiring my first associate already. And yeah, so our staff is about to be up to 4, which is also part of why I've been so busy trying to be focused on that. And so moving into a new house, as people can see, and also we got a baby on the way. So we're it's been a busy 6 months. I promise I've not been lounging around wasting away. It's been hard at work doing a lot of things, but no, I'm happy to be back. I'm gonna try and be back as much as I can. And
I mean, you're a soon-to-be father and small business owner. Shocking that you're on the right. I couldn't see that coming.
I'm crazy. And it's funny. I got actually my 10-year high school reunion is coming up this Saturday, and I have no clue. I've not kept up with anyone from high school, but it's
I'm that much older than you.
Yeah. But I have no clue what anyone has been up to since high school. So I feel like it's going to be a bit of a culture shock because, I feel like things are going pretty well. I'm trying to do good for myself, and it's going to be wild to see. But I guess so. But yeah, y'all. Tuesday, 8:30. We're gonna throw down. Ryan has launched the opening salvo. He is the Fort Sumter, and he's called the Bannermen to arms. And so I'm like, Rohan, I'm answering. Sorry, I'm mixing up all my references right now, but it's okay.
Yeah, I just watched that again. I hadn't watched it in so many years. It holds up. It's like it's still good. But yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I'm glad to see you back in the saddle. So on Tuesday, do watch it. Get some hype. Watch Gen Z and friend of the stream Pisco duke it out. And look, man, I knock him dead. I think that I did the thing that I wanted to do, right? So I hope that was useful in some way to you, but obviously it's your debate. You should approach it in whatever way is gonna work for you.
Well, we'll see. It's funny. Pisco's saying in chat, asking if I'm gonna ignore the prompts. He should know this is actually all a ruse to talk to Josiah about his Star Wars takes, because my gosh, I don't know that I've heard anyone. He thinks Rise of Skywalker is the best of the sequel trilogy. And that's just patently, objectively, I hate The Last Jedi more, but Rise of Skywalker is objectively the worst of those 3 movies. I mean, somehow Palpatine Return is the worst 3 lines of movie dialogue in movie history. And so, yeah, this is all a ruse to actually get Josiah one-on-one in the same room to talk Star Wars.
Gang, you heard it here first. Wheels within wheels, ruses within ruses, and it all terminates with Star Wars talk. So, yeah, man. Well, Gen Z, good luck, man. It's gonna be fun.
Thank you. No, thanks for having me, and it's gonna be a fun time Tuesday. Looking forward to it. Everyone, be there. We're throwing down, so it's gonna be a good time.
All right, check it out. Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
Oh, hi, Ryan. How you doing?
Look at that avatar. Whoa. Okay, buddy.
If you know the reference, that's a good reference. Yeah. A couple of things. One, when it comes to you being on the new right, here's the test you need to pass for anyone to take you seriously.
Sure.
I call it the right-wing flawed world versus left-wing hell world. And this is one of those things that most people, especially the enlightened centrists, can't pass.
You got me nervous.
Let's say, right-wing flawed world happens. You got your choice, gun to your head. In right-wing flawed world, gay marriage has been completely overturned and is now fully banned too on all 50 states. It's basically a whole bunch of things where it's like, I don't really like that. Highly questionable, like pornography has been severely restricted or banned in many states. But we already know what the left wants, and just like what they've outright said, and we already know what left-winger hell world looks like. It's called California, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, stretched all across America, and what they want to do. Like, there's a reason why we can't let them in power. They're utterly degenerate and have fully gone on to the degenerate strategy of winning politics, which is open up the country and flood it with a bunch of migrants, then give them amnesty. So it's like, knowing this, can you deal with living in flawed right-wing world where it's like, well, I can't get all my pornography that I want, and the gays can't get married, but my daughters aren't being turned into OnlyFans whores.
I can tell you what version of flawed right-wing world I would accept, and I can tell you which version of flawed right-wing world I would reject, if that's helpful.
That would be fair.
Yeah. So my primary objection on like tyranny grounds is about the imposition of specifically federal power on the way people live their lives in states about matters that are not national in nature. Right? So like, I agree that we should be restricting immigration. I agree that we should be making sure that we are careful about who we let into the country. That's a national question. You know, should gay people have the right to get married? That's a local question. That's a state question, right?
I would agree.
So the question is like, if you're going to talk about like gay marriage is banned, when would I be okay with that? When would I not be okay with that? If states are banning it, that's their decision. If the federal government is imposing a ban, I have more of a problem with it, because I don't think I don't even think the federal government should have anything to do with marriage at all.
Fair.
Like what the fuck does the federal government have to do with it? And the truth is, the way I look at it, I don't know if I'm answering your question the way you wanted me to, but the way I look at it, and maybe it's because I've lived in California and I've lived in the Northeast, but I've also like spent time in the South and I've spent time in the Midwest. The country's real different, man. People are real different. Like, people in Tennessee need to be allowed to live differently than people in LA. They just have to be allowed to live differently because they're different.
I get that, but sadly, LA is not going to stay in LA. They're going to force that shit everywhere else.
Yeah.
And this is sort of what we're coming on to, pretty much why politics has gotten so coarse and basically existential, because it is now. The Republic, we've already seen the full shit fit that the left wing is going through right now, just because the right wing, or parts of it anyway, have started to actually play for keeps. Like, they've actually recognized, oh, we're going to take the game of power and politics seriously now. And we're not going to be beholden to retarded ideology and norms that is just constantly, well, you lose, or you play with one hand tied behind your back while we always slow march on you. And so it's like, when it comes to Trump's rhetoric is only escalationary insofar as he was literally telling the Democrats to go fuck themselves when they call him a racist or some shit. Whereas beforehand, you just go, "Aw, shucks, guys, you know, that's kind of rude, but I won't say anything back. It's just we have a polite disagreement. Could you please stop calling me Hitler?"
Well, can I one up you a little bit there? The rhetoric isn't actually, I mean, it might be animating like online discourse or news cycles, but the reason that Trump is reviled on the left has more to do with the fact that he's been uniquely effective in rolling back the progressive status quo.
Oh yeah.
Like, if you look at like the federal government's regulations, intrusion into various areas of life, he's been uniquely effective in unwinding a lot of these things, which is a existential threat to progressivism as a whole, which is why he's so reviled. And then, of course, he says and does things that are easy to pick on. But the broader point there that I'm hoping the right can pick up, because look, he's gone in a few years. Like, his 10 years in the sun is over.
Yeah.
Is this idea of rolling back these kind of national seats of power and allowing local seats of power to emerge. Because the reason why we don't have local solutions to a lot of these problems is that everything is federal. Every goddamn little thing is federal. And if everything is federal, that's actually where we get to your hypo of, do you want bad outcome A or bad outcome B? Which one do you prefer? Because if everything's federal, then the only option is for the majority to tyrannize the minority. But our founders were fucking geniuses, and they figured out that there is another option. You can let local people live differently, right? And like, that's the only way to avoid, like, let's be honest, we're a country of over 30 million people. You just can't live in it and have 51% of the people vote to beat 49% of the people with sticks. Like that, like you literally will have the country dissolve if you nationalize everything. It's not possible.
Oh yeah, I know that. I get that, but it's one of those things of, what kind of enemy are we against? We're not against loyal opposition. We disagree on tax policy or something like that. We've gotten to the point where no, we are on the side of third world people here to come and loot and take your birthright. And if you say anything about it, you are the problem. Like, it's one of those things of, when it comes to like the civic nationalist types, or it's like, oh, we can have the American ideology, and like, you just need to buy in. It's like, I don't know if you guys understand how much of, like, do you ever remember the meme of like the bus of a bus that's going across some train tracks, and it's like, this concept, and then the bus gets just absolutely destroyed by the train that is the direct antithesis. So, like, example, the bus is, if we get rid of religion, then we'll create a more scientifically based and logical society. And then the train is just women can have penises, sort of thing. Just boom, right there.
Yeah.
Instantly disproven wrong. And that person for that, or that train for your bus there, is Ilhan Omar.
So are you Christian?
No, but I do very much hope they win.
Okay. Yeah, so
I would submit to the Christian Authority.
All right. Yeah. I was at easier example if you were, but so one of the things that I think we've made a mistake on in this country is that we've bought into the idea that just because, like, for example, just because we think that we don't want the federal government deciding something means that everybody should have no opinion on it. Right? Like, the idea, we started with this idea of having a government of limited powers and a moral people who would self-enforce because they were given the room to do so. But then we use the power of law to take away people's capacity to actually, like, structure a moral society amongst themselves, which then meant that there was no moral structure to society at all. So, like, I think one of the mistakes that I see, because I'm a classic liberal, but the thing I think that a lot of classic liberals do that is a mistake is that they're unwilling to admit that if you are going to give people freedom, you need a moral structure. You need a society with a moral foundation, because you can't give freedom to an immoral people. It just doesn't work.
And if you ask the founding fathers, like, you transposed them from 76 and you threw them into 2020, how much of the country would they consider good moral people that can rule themselves, and how much of the other country would they consider absolute degenerates that must be ruled by a tyrant?
Yeah, but then the flip side of that is, like, for example, like, fighting communism is too important a job to let the government do it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't defeat an idea by imposing force. It just festers. You defeat an idea by creating a moral populace who rejects it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think I've tried to explain where I fall.
It's fair. It's fair enough, but I think we've gotten to the point with just, you can't let the left be around, man. They have to be. I hate to say, when it comes to and give Pisco ammo sort of thing, but we do genuinely have to, like, defang the Democrats permanently.
Well, this is why I got into this tyranny point in the debate, and this is why I was pointing this out, because, like, if you get to a world where you're actually in political zero sum, right? Like there's no common culture left, there's no ties that bind left. There are things that are legal and constitutional that would end the country as we know it and turn it into something very different, and I think worse. Now, if that's going to happen either way, obviously you prefer your side win.
Yep.
There's no question there, right? But on the flip side, I actually don't think we're there yet. But the reason why I got so up in arms about what Pisco is proposing is if you did those things, if you packed the court, if you packed the Senate, if you took away the independence of the judiciary and you punished Republicans for supporting Trump and then locked them out of power for 10 years or whatever, then you are at the zero sum point, right? Like that, that is the zero sum point.
And I think it's one of those things of there are technically legit ways to lock people out of power and not, and I'll give an example. It's just like, let's say, for like with the defunding of USAID and closing down the border, that has been a massive blow to the left, and is in some way going to pretty much lock them out of power in a lot of things. Getting rid of the termination of the Voting Rights Act that has, allowed for getting rid of those minority majority districts in the South. That has given Republicans a bunch of seats. It's like that locked them out of the Senate, or has I wouldn't say permanently locked them out of the Senate or the House, but it's now made an uphill battle where they actually have to earn it now.
But you see the difference that I'm pointing out to you, right? Which is if I assumed that everybody on the left believed what Pisco admitted he believed during that debate, then I would be forced to agree with you that kind of black pill solution is necessary. But that's why I'm forcing the conversation and why I'm talking about tyranny, because I don't actually think the normies on the left believe that. I think that what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg, and the fucking propagandists and instigators are trying to normalize this shit, which means that we have a window to do something productive about it.
I'd like to think that, but ultimately it's one of those things of the minority doesn't matter on this. The majority the silent majority or the silent normally doesn't matter. It's who's the organized minority of the left. What are they actually doing? How are they leading their normies and stuff?
But I think that that's not a good enough, because what you're proposing, to be clear, is tyrannical, right? And if I'm going to oppose tyranny, which I do, I'm not going to be in favor, obviously, of tyranny coming from my preferred side. Now, the hypo that you suggested is asking, in the absolute dead scenario where the worst has happened and there's only two alternatives, do you think your side should win? The answer there obviously has to be yes. But similarly, you have to do everything possible to stop from getting to that point, right? You have to go down with the ships trying to not get there. And I don't know that I can convince you that we're not there yet, but I don't think we are. I'm worried though, and the reason I'm worried in a way that I have not been previously is that it's not like I'm seeing like Pisco and Josiah making this argument. It's like Ro Khanna and like Harris, and it's like it's coming from prominent voices on the left now, which is new, which means I think they're testing the waters, and while they're testing the waters, they need to get blown the fuck up. Like, people need to show up in the midterms and be like, absolutely hell no.
And
we're going to make.
In fact, I think you should have gone further with Pisco. I think you should have gone full Pisco on Pisco, because whenever he argues with people, he is such a aggressive asshole. You really should have insulted him every time he tried to I want to go to the prompt. You should have been like, no, you pussy. Argue a actual point. Throw that fucking syllogism aside. Be a real man. Oh, and it's like, look, moderator, he's being a pussy. He's being a pussy. He's running away.
Well,
Coward
Max,
Pisco.
I will say this is the first time I received the criticism that I was not aggressive enough in that conversation.
Oh no, you need to be so aggressive that he gets PTSD flashbacks every time he tries to do the yes or no bullshit to somebody. Yes or no, Pisco, you're a fucking tyrant. Answer the goddamn question.
Well, Max, I appreciate you, but I'm going to move on to the next caller. But
Fair
thank
enough.
you so much for calling in, buddy.
No problem. See you around, bud.
Mug into mug. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm on speaker, not headphones, so I'm worried that I'm echoey. I'm not echoey, am I?
Echo sounds fine. If let me know, gang, if it turns into a problem.
Okay. Are you a Andrew Wilson guy? You kind of are, right?
Andrew, I would say Andrew and I have a good relationship. I think we agree on a lot. It's not a total overlap. I think that there's probably, I don't know. I think if you threw a dart at like political stuff, we'd agree on a whole bunch of it. But there are some real serious disagreements between the two of us that we might fight over in a saner world. We're not in that saner world, so I think for right now we more or less align. But what's your question?
What do you think about women's role in politics? Is what I want to ask.
Women's role in politics? I don't know what you're asking.
Do you think that it's like in our interest to maintain women's suffrage?
To maintain women's suffrage?
Yeah.
I don't think that like making a suffrage determination on the basis of sex is a good thing to do. I think that would be a problem. I'm in favor of limiting suffrage in a whole bunch of ways, but I wouldn't do it on the basis of sex specifically. No.
Have you ever talked to Andrew about that?
No, I haven't. I've seen he's talked about it, though. Quite frankly, when he talks about it, he's generally in favor of limiting suffrage also. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think we might disagree on.
He does play hide the ball, I think. And I mean, I've heard him say point blank, like, we should repeal the 19th Amendment. But,
oh, sure. But
right. That's not something you would support.
Well, to limit suffrage, you would I mean, let me pull up the text, but I think to limit suffrage, you would have to repeal the 19th Amendment.
Okay, but he means specifically like we should stop women from voting, but maintain the right for men to vote.
I don't know if that's his view. I've heard him take that position, but it's normally in the context of a broader argument or a critique. I'm not positive whether he's actually saying, like, for example, but this is an interesting point because I've never spoken to him about it, and I'd be interested to. Like, if for example, you came up with a rule that said instead of getting the right to vote at 18, you get the right to vote at 25 when you pass a civics test.
Yeah.
Right. But you can also get the right to vote earlier by doing things that show that you're a stakeholder in democracy. Like, for example, military service would be the obvious one. Another obvious one might be that you're like a net taxpayer and you're no one's dependent. Like, there's various things that I don't have a full set of prescriptions, right?
I for sure agree with you that mostly when he's on the topic of women voting, it's mostly a critique, an internal critique of his opponent, whoever it is. But assuming though, like
if the question is, would I be in favor of saying women never get the right to vote? The answer would be obviously no. I'm not in favor of that.
Okay, and if the
question is like, but what if you limited suffrage and put in some kind of system? I'm spitballing, so I don't have it perfect, but like some kind of system that limited suffrage but encouraged it for stakeholders, and it had some kind of disproportionate impact. Would that be necessarily a problem? Not necessarily.
No, I'm assuming in my question that I'm asking you that Andrew holds the position, and I could be wrong, right?
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that Andrew holds the position that women, by the virtue of them being women,
should never vote.
Should not vote, and you disagree with that, right?
If that's his position, that's something that we disagree on.
Right. And do you think that's disagreeable because that's against your idea of individual sovereignty? And
yeah, I would disagree because I think there's a moral obligation to treat people as individuals.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought you'd say.
That requires that, like, that doesn't mean that you treat them all like identically, because you would treat them based off of what the things they've done in their life. But
right. That makes sense. Would you ever talk to him about that?
Sure.
What would you like? You debate him about it, or would you just like kind of vibe it out, or what?
I don't know. I would love to talk to Andrew about like philosophy or other topics when it comes up.
Right.
Like right now, our relationship is more about like me doing legal commentary.
Right.
Because he, like Rob does politics and Andrew does kind of like politics and philosophy. And like Jay Dyer does like Orthodox Christianity. Like there's kind of a constellation of people. And my fit within that system is purely law. Down the road, I'd be very happy to have those conversations when the opportunity arises.
If you were like in a formal debate with Andrew and the premise was women should, by virtue of them being women, not have the right to vote, how would you come at that?
Oh, I mean, I'm a big fan of the American moral proposition, and I start basically all my arguments from there.
So why wouldn't you just go straight towards, I don't care what your arguments are. I just know that your prescription, your premise would be disastrous for the country, and I'm not going to argue point on this. I just want to expose you as being a sexist.
Is this the Pisco parallel you're trying to get to?
Yeah.
Okay. The difference is, and I think this is an important one, the norm that Pisco is picking at, I think actually will cause the disintegration of the American experiment if it's allowed to happen.
So even though stopping women from voting by the virtue of being women would take a constitutional amendment, and packing the court wouldn't.
It would be a very bad idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it should happen, but I don't think the country would like devolve into civil war or break over it. No.
My intuition, and I'm wondering why you think this, is that adding even 4 Supreme Court justices wouldn't even come close towards, in the year 2026, repealing half the country's right to vote on the basis of their sex. I think that would obviously be worse.
How do you repeal and replace an amendment? Do you know?
You got to ratify it through the states. You got to get 2/3 of Congress. All that. Yeah.
Okay. So in any situation where that amendment was repealed, that means you have the vast majority of states and a supermajority of Congress on board with it.
Right, but I'm not saying the premise would be in this hypothetical that we should repeal the 19th Amendment. I'm saying in this hypothetical we would have. So forgive me for bringing up the idea of an amendment.
This is why it's important. No. The amendment is really important because the problem with what Pisco's proposing is that the guardrail for all the horrible things he wants to do is a 1 vote majority in both houses when you have the presidency. Right now, if the Republicans wanted to do the following, like if the Republicans wanted to burn the fucking country down and just seize power, they could expand the court to 100 people, fill it with the most radical boot toady licking conservatives you could imagine, who are just going to strike down everything and say that Democrats never win an election again. Then, there's an island that's between Mexico and Texas that's in dispute. Build a house on it, call it a state. Now they get 2 more votes in the Senate. These are all things that can be done with a 1 vote majority. If you want to. Now, it would burn the country down if you did it. The problem is there's actually a flaw in the constitutional order. There is an insufficient guardrail against this issue, and that's the issue that Pisco's targeting. The guardrail that Andrew's targeting, to the extent he's targeting that guardrail, is one that actually would require a full majority buy-in of almost the entire society to change. That's the difference.
I think that in either one of these premises, with Andrew's premise of we should remove women's right to vote on the basis of being women versus Pisco's we should do this, it doesn't necessarily consider the procedures on how it's enacted. It assumes that the effect is done. And I think you're really kind of dodging here.
Okay, sorry. Let me make it more clear. If the Republicans wanted to remove the women's right to vote, they could do it by doing what I just said.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So let's assume they do it the way you want it to do it. Would that not destroy the country?
I would obviously, if Andrew was saying we should bypass constitutional guardrails to tyrannically remove a constitutional amendment, even though there's a clear process for doing it, and we're going to bypass it through a tyrannical means, then yes, I would be very, very opposed to that, to the point where I would pick fights with him about it. I do not understand that to be what he's saying.
No, but if it was what he was saying, and you had that debate,
then I would obviously pick a fight with him about that.
Would you avoid his premises and say, Andrew, I'm here to expose you as a sexist radical, and I don't care what your argument is because what you're advocating for.
No, not as a sexist radical, as a tyrant.
Oh, you'd say, I'm not going to argue about your premises because you're a tyrant and you're arguing for something that would ruin the country.
If someone's point is they want to end the American experiment and end our way of government, and do so through a loophole that has to be closed because it's a massive constitutional loophole, then I am opposed to them doing that, because the tyranny of a one-vote majority is unbearable. It's no better than having a tyrant or king or despot. Now,
yeah, I'm trying to get more to a meta point.
Andrew say anything close to that, by the way.
But I understand you're against the principle, but are you against debating the principle? Because in Pisco's case, I think you made it clear that Pisco advocating for something tyrannical makes you, in and of itself, not want to debate it.
No. Pisco Trojan horsing something tyrannical. Pisco coming in to say, oh, I just have this narrow proposition and I just want to talk about this little thing. I don't want to talk about my actual views. That's the problem, is that what Pisco's doing is that he's attempting to sane wash and normalize something that, if permitted, would lead to this kind of tyrannical outcome. And my issue is that he's as a lawyer, he knows what the loophole is, and he's steering people towards it instead of steering people away.
You don't think the Christian nationalists are doing that when they're trying to sane wash like theocracy and stopping women from voting? And I don't think you would have this approach with Andrew Wilson like you did with Pisco. I think you're kind of, I think you grade them on a curve almost. And I mean, I'm not even almost, I think you do that. And I'm wondering, like, when Rob Noor is defending indicting the former FBI director over this kind of thing, you say it's bad tactics, right? But then when Pisco is doing something that is also tyrannical on your view, it's not even worth talking about. It's immediately, I need to spend my time telling you that you're a tyrant, and that even though his finger's not on the button in that moment, right? It's a conversation.
Rob isn't lying about his view or what he wants to do.
What's Pisco lying about?
I'm going to oppose him about the fact that I disagree with him. And by the way, if you're a fan of the show, which I assume you're not, Rob and I had such serious fights about my opposition to political prosecution that we actually broke up the show. It was actually a sticking point that caused us to not have a show for a while because of how much we disagree on that particular issue. As to the problem that I have with Pisco, my issue with Pisco is that he is going around with his little bullshit syllogism and his attempt to normalize something he knows and should is unthinkable. And he's not playing hide the ball with his political view. He's playing hide the ball with a flaw in the constitutional structure that, as a lawyer, he knows exists.
Okay.
That's the problem. I'm not trying to like go around and tone police people about their political opinions. I'm concerned that Pisco is steering the ship towards a constitutional flaw that collapses the whole system on purpose.
I think that's totally reasonable if Pisco was in a position of power to do that in the moment, right? Like, if Pisco had his finger on the button and you were trying to convince him...
What power does Pisco have that he's not using?
Sorry, ask the question again.
What power does Pisco have that he's not using?
None.
He's using all the power at his disposal to do something tyrannical, and neither he nor I are in the government, but we do have platforms. You know, mine is fairly modest, but we do have them. So yes, I'm going to use mine to point out what he is doing, because it is a fucking problem.
You said you're trying to save your country in the middle of a debate, but he's not in a position where he can do the thing that you think would destroy the country. He's not in a position to do that any more than I am, right?
And you know what? If I could get a debate with Ro Khanna, I'd say the same goddamn thing to him.
I think that'd be more understandable.
It would be, but I'm not in a position to fight with Ro Khanna. I am in a position.
So
to
why
fight
not
with
talk about the
Pisco.
merits, right? If you're not in a position to talk about something that has the consequence of having the effect that you think would happen, why not just talk about the merits of the premise? And I agree with you that if it follows that,
I mean, we did talk about the merits. We talked about it for the second half of the debate. But the point of the debate, from my perspective, was to point out that Pisco is a wannabe tyrant arguing for naked tyranny. That's the point that I wanted to make, and I made it. So, like, you might disagree that that was something that I ought do, but I think it's something I ought do, so I did it.
Okay, I understand that. That makes sense to me. That's your position. I just don't think that.
Anything else on your mind?
Yeah, one last thing. I don't want to waste your time. I understand that I too would be frustrated if someone held a position that I thought fell within a premise, but they didn't want to argue that one position. For example, you kept telling him to argue 13, argue for the 4, and stop playing hide the ball by just saying, is it justifiable to argue for, in principle, packing the Supreme Court? Why don't you argue for 13? But he would necessarily have to fill that prerequisite of first justifying Supreme Court packing as a principle in order to argue for 13, wouldn't he?
I mean, I guess theoretically. What's your point?
So why are you trying to skip and make him argue 13 when, even as it happens to be the premise of the debate, he would have to fill the condition of proving that first, but you wouldn't concede that. You wouldn't concede that point
because I don't want to sane wash his position and normalize it.
But you asked him, say, argue 13. He cannot argue 13 if he doesn't fulfill the prerequisite of proving that it's justified to even.
You seem to be confused. So let me make this simpler.
Yeah.
My goal in that debate was to kick a tyrant in the teeth and expose him for what he is.
So when you said argue 13, you didn't mean it?
My goal in that debate was not to have an intellectual conversation or joust with Pisco about his idiotic positions or bullshit syllogism. If I wanted to do that, that's what I would have done. What I wanted to do was expose the fact that he has overtly tyrannical goals. And that is, in fact, what I did.
So when you said argue 13, you didn't want him to argue 13?
What I wanted was for everyone to see what he has become.
Why don't you do that to Andrew Wilson, Rob Noor, at every moment you talk to him?
Are we still circling? I've answered this question already. So if you have anything else, we can talk about it.
Okay. I mean, I think that when Rob Noor defends the electors plot, that kind of thing.
Get to a question real quick because I'm running out of patience.
Okay. If I wanted to prove to you that the Earth was round, wouldn't I? And the premise was gravity is an observable phenomena, an observable scientific phenomena, and you said skip that part. I just want you to prove to me the Earth is round. Wouldn't I have to first prove to you that gravity is a scientifically observable phenomena?
Irrelevant. Anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
Asked and answered. All right, have a good one. Okay, Sam Josh, you're up, buddy. What's going on?
Whoa, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Hi, long time listener, first time caller. Glad to finally speak to you. So I just have 3 words. Book club when?
Oh shit, book club when? I'm so called out.
You're good. I think it'd be a good idea. It might help build community on the channel. It could at least just be something on the Discord that I'm not a part of. It could even just be like a Substack that is written that people subscribe to or something like that. But yeah, I just think more ways for you to get your message out would be good, because I think you have a strong, the way you voice yourself is very well spoken, and you obviously know your shit. And yeah, I don't want to keep it going for too long because I can have everyone can obviously tell that I'm stoned. So
well, that's why you need the book club. You need something to read.
Yes.
Yeah, no, this is a very good. First of all, thank you for the kind words. And second of all, this is a very good point because it's the thing I keep putting on the back burner, but it's actually a really, really good idea. And I do want to talk to Eucharist about this because Eucharist has started putting up some like political philosophy and like academic content on his little he has a very small YouTube channel. People should subscribe to Eucharist, Philip D. Bunn's YouTube channel. It's it's great. People should check it out. Great guy, and we should definitely do that. But I have taken the message, I have imbibed it, and I will do better.
May I also make a request that you do the Moral Foundations test on stream? That's the Jonathan Haidt sort of political philosophy test. I think that could be fun content, and it could even just be a standalone video that you do, and you could like pre-record it or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be very funny. I kind of wonder where I'd turn out these days because the as my conversation with Max showed, like my libertarian streak is gonna show when I take a test like that.
All right. Well, that's all for me. I just wanted to say you've been doing great.
Hey,
keep up the good work.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the call and appreciate you. Have a good one. All right. Well, that was a breath of fresh air after the previous caller. Okay, Meh, calling you up. Meh, what's going on?
Hello. Sorry, gotta unmute myself.
Yeah, by the way, sorry, while you're doing that, Sam Josh, we definitely have a Discord, so if you want to join the Discord, please do. Hey, buddy, what's going on? What's on your mind?
Not much. It was funny listening to the other guy talk. So here's a question for you. Because there are two conversations that I'm going to have here. One is going to be obviously the norms that were violated when it comes to the Eastman memos type scenario. But I don't know how much. I think you've made the point clear as to what you view as like load-bearing norms versus non-load-bearing norms. So here's a different one, I guess. Do you think that, I guess, the remedies the Democrats were actually seeking in the Colorado Supreme Court case could qualify as a load-bearing norm? Because I always thought that went super under the radar. Because if it really was the case that they had won that Supreme Court case, I mean, we would not have a President Trump right now.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that, but if I take you correctly, the Colorado case, which was whether Colorado could determine that Trump was an insurrectionist and then take him off the ballot for that basis, whether that's a load-bearing norm, as I've used the phrase, I think you're right. I think that one is, and I think that's why it was a 9-0, because the Supreme Court justices were just like, holy shit! Like if we allow this, it has no termination point. Like it eats the system. So I think that's a good point. That sounds right.
Well, and even past that, because some of the ramifications on that were just like insane. Because remember, the whole concept was it's self-actualizing. And if it's self-actualizing and then they decide to, I guess, levy the charge of actualizing the case of insurrection the day before the election, ballots go out, et cetera. Like, look at the timing of that court case, too. I mean, it was super close on the margins. And I feel like a lot of these things go unexamined because, they skirted on the radar and they were very close. And maybe this is too much defense for the Eastman memo. I just want to say I'm on your side. I think that was definitely a load-bearing norm. And I think it was, morally outrageous that he did it. But at least when I was reading the Eastman memo, it had to at least go through the states. And then after the states, he even wrote in his memo that there was going to be a push-up to the Supreme Court. And I know that's only two barriers, and it's load-bearing, and it's still bad, and all that kind of stuff. But like the Colorado Supreme Court got so much closer, I think, theoretically, because I think the Eastman thing would have gone 9-0 regardless, right? That would have been kicked out. Emergency meeting, one day, strike it down immediately, get the hell out of here, Eastman. But
well, I mean, this is the thing about the Eastman memos, and if I'm going to be charitable to him for a second, it's not like he had I've seen worse legal arguments. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like, you can construct a legal argument for a losing position. And, sometimes you do this in law. Like you're like, a client wants to do something and they know it's a Hail Mary. And you're like, well, can we do this? And you're like, well, I mean, 30%, but it's probably not going to work. But it's not like there's no law. We could try, but it probably won't work. Right. Like there's low percentage legal arguments, and that's fine. My problem with the Eastman memo is the load bearingness of it, because at a certain point, people rely on the lawyer to tell them that like they're approaching a line like this. It's kind of like, are you familiar with jury nullification?
Yes, I am.
Jury nullification is a load-bearing norm, because if the people if you allow, for example, like we have rules that you can't like tell people about jury nullification outside courthouses. Like you can't like hand out pamphlets and stuff, because if you imagine like a world where juries just ignored the law and just like decided whatever they wanted on vibes 100% of the time, we would just not have a legal system. It would be done. We'd be cooked. Right. So like, you have to like, even though like there's a flaw in the system, you have to kind of work around and protect the flaw. And there's reasons why lawyers can't like tell jurors about jury nullification during trial, because we know how disastrous it would be. There's some norms that are they too much weight rests on them, man. You just can't. Like if you just game it out, you're like, oh shit, that goes nowhere good.
And I guess to push on that a little bit more, because I agree. The problem though is I think what we have, I'm going to go on Rob Noor's side on this one.
Okay.
We have these types of systems where it's like there's no bar for establishing what is a load-bearing norm versus what is not. And I actually think, in a proper and just system, what happened to John Eastman was probably right. We should probably disincentivize lawyers from doing things that have like massive political ramifications by challenging some, procedure at the 9th hour or whatever, the 11th hour, whatever the phrase is. But in the same way, I wish that we saw more of that going. There had been like some more of a benchmark by which we could measure other cases that have come up, and we just look at them and say, okay, if you had won this case, the United States of America would have been destroyed. You should probably suffer the same fate as Eastman. And I guess we don't see that in the legal system, but it's also because it's so nebulous and hard to do, because one goes into political persecution on one side and one goes into political persecution on the other side. And then it's like, how do you even enforce these kind of super nebulous standards that without it being, I guess, co-opted by partisanry? Or is it really just the case that we're just relying on these norms and having a moral populace in order to work these things?
I mean, we are relying on these norms in some part, and the reason why I'm so hard on Peace Code, this is something that previous callers seem to not understand, is that like the norm that's being pushed on here is a legal norm, and the same reason I'm hard on Eastman is the same reason I'm hard on Peace Code. It's that what is the role of people who are legally educated in society if not to protect these particular guardrails and norms? Like, who's going to do it if we don't? Right? Like, honestly, like the lawyer who brought the Colorado case against Trump should have said, like, this is a real bad idea. We shouldn't do this. Like, can you imagine if we win? Like, can you imagine if we win and then now Biden can't be on 5 ballots and Trump can't be on 7 ballots? Like, it's a nightmare. Can we imagine if we win this case? What a nightmare this would be. Like, the lawyer should have said no is the answer, and like, I don't know that it's always punishable, but that's the truth, is that lawyers are the people in position to see these problems coming. And if they don't do anything about it, then no one will.
Okay, but now I have to lay into it, because here's the steel man of the argument, which is the progressive lawyers. That is a legal train of thought that they hold. And so the question then becomes, okay, so like, are we in this abstract sense tamping down on the progressive nature of the lawyer? Because if we could make the argument that John Eastman, quote unquote, is a progressive lawyer in the sense that he's testing the bounds of the legal system, and we want to use the fluffy language of that progressive thought process. And should we order punish these kind of progressive thought processes when it comes to these outlets pushing the norms?
If I really want to, if I really wanted to push on it hard, I think the biggest difference is what state you're barred in. Right, because if you're gonna get punished, you're gonna be punished by the bar association of the state you're a member of. So like Eastman is barred in California, and he got disbarred by California. I don't think he would have been disbarred if he was, if he was a Texas lawyer only. Would he have been disbarred? Probably not. That's the truth.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one, but. Yeah, those are the trails I want to go down, but I appreciate the time.
Hey, appreciate you coming on, buddy. And I appreciate you coming on, and see you around.
Have a good one.
Yeah, I think the thing about some of these kind of like fundamental guardrails or load bearing norms, that sort of thing. Oh, they say it's a lot better. Is that like you could? I mean, I suppose anyone can disagree about anything, and you can always argue the other side. But at the end of the day, why haven't the Republicans just done it already? Right? Because like they would rather be in a fight with an entrenched opposition than live in a country where they just like they knock the board off the table and they say, fuck it, we're doing tyranny now. Like,
Right.
but they could. Like, you can't. There's a reason why constitutional amendment is so hard. It's so hard because it's such a big deal. And the problem with court packing is that it lets you do constitutional amendment without going through the amendment process, which means that with a 51 vote majority, if you abolish the filibuster, you can do basically anything you want.
There is no constitution at that point.
There's no constitution. There's just the rule of law is gone. It's just like the tyranny of a razor thin majority, and the country won't survive that. It just won't.
And what is the actual slippery slope? Like once you get somebody who's willing to nuke the filibuster and then pack the court, that's game over. And I think the Colorado example is actually good for this too, is because, I mean, it was a 9-0 decision, but do you think if they had 4 more liberal justices that were packed on there, that the 3 liberal justices wouldn't have flipped? You think that they're so bound to the Constitution that if there were 4, if it was a 13-person court, that they would be like, no, we're totally sticking with our originalist roots.
And also, in one of his conversations, Pisco listed that decision as one of the problems that justified court packing. Right. So it's like, okay, well, like the liberal justices disagreed. So that if that's one of your problems that justifies court packing, and he did say that, then like, okay, well then shit, maybe 4 is not enough. Maybe you need 6 or 8, right? To
until you get the right answer.
Until you get the answer you want. And that's the fundamental problem. This is why the Bork example is so important.
I can't believe that he didn't even talk about it. I think he was just playing ignorant. He had to be. Just been like,
he absolutely
Bork
knows.
who?
He knows about the norms and what happened with Bork. He absolutely does.
But he probably cheered about it.
Well, I was too young to cheer about it. But the thing about it is that there's whether or not you agree with this, and I think postmodernists or subjectivists or relativists don't agree with this. They don't agree that there's objective meaning to the law or to the Constitution. But even if you don't, the whole legal system is premised on the idea that there is. Because if there's no meaning, then what are lawyers arguing about? What are we doing here? Like, if we're just making it up. Because when you make up the rules, that's politics. When you interpret the law, that's law. But if they're the same thing, then you've already vitiated the rule of law and the court, and you can't then expect that people are going to treat it as this like venerable and important thing down the road.
Well, especially if, in the very like base level example is, so the police come knocking at your door because you're a person of unsavory opinions about whatever the political environment is, or just because they don't like you, and they're arresting you on whatever, and you don't really get to know what it is because they're now relative to subjectivists. The officers are, and so now you're in a court system. It's Kafka's The Trial. At that point in time, you don't know exactly what it is because words don't have meanings. So you have no way to guard your behavior or even behave in a civil society because that foundational mooring that allows us to coexist with each other, all the safeguards that allow us to know what the outer limits of human behavior that are proper are, go away. So, and this is why like people who are the stance subject or like relativists or like stance dependent people to that point are just they're lying to themselves. They want unicorns or whatever, because like the practical, it's so great. The practical implications of having a stance dependent position or a moral relativist perspective played out all the way in a society are, Mad Max / the German Painter.
Well, it's tough if you give up the idea that there is some sense in which the law could be objectively applied to you. If we're gonna say that there's no way that the law could even in principle be objectively applied, like not even like we're gonna be able to accomplish it, but as a goal to reach, it's not even in it's not even theoretically possible. It's philosophically incomprehensible, that sort of thing. Then yeah, that begs the question, well, why would anyone care about the law at all? They would just care about the consequences, which is ironically is the criticism that they have of Trump, is that he plays fast and loose with the spirit of the law, whatever that means. But at the same time, now Pisco's pushing for this, and that's why I felt like this had to be pointed out, because the thing that he's advocating for, and maybe he just thinks he's fighting fire with fire or something, I don't know, but like the thing he's advocating for is the self-destruct button for the concept of rule of law.
But he wins.
Yeah.
At the point, and that's the whole thing. And that I mean, the thing is, it's obvious and completely clear that like, if they get this bare majority, they're going to do it. And the same thing too about the Democrats hiding their power levels, or Pisco hiding his power level is, and that's the one thing I think I would say. One thing when you're like, well, one of the goals of you smacking Pisco in the face with his tyranny is to hope that the Democrats abandon this position. That I would just be very wary that if they do abandon this position, they're just like, oh, it's not pot, but they're hiding their power level, and they're still pushing for, now that this has actually been raised to like conscious thought and speech in public, it's there. And no matter what they say, it's there.
That's why the Carville thing is so difficult for me, because like with the first caller, Mad Max, like I reject that we're in that sort of zero-sum situation at this point. And maybe I'm an optimist, but I reject it. The problem with the Carville thing is, if people are going to lie and then just do it, now you can't tell if you're in that scenario. And that's really dangerous, because now you're playing with imperfect information, but the consequences are so huge, right?
So then you have to assume a bad faith actor at that point. And that's why I think that Pisco really is a vanguard for the actual position as a public intellectual. And again, like even if he doesn't have 1 million or 3 million follower reach, or like AOC is not talking to him, that position has more traction than just Pisco and just Destiny and just all those other folks. And so,
can I address that really fast? Because I didn't get a chance to do this. It's just a thing that pisses me off.
Go ahead.
When I got in an argument with Destiny a while back,
I saw that.
He
I saw that
me on
live.
X.
No,
this is a long time ago. And I was criticizing his rhetoric, and he was like, "Fuck you, Trump uses worse rhetoric," right? And my point was, well, I'm not a fan of Trump's rhetoric either, but I don't know him. Like, I know you. So I'm trying to tell you that you are doing something wrong because I know you. You know, like, I don't know Ro Khanna. I would love to have a debate with Ro Khanna about his plan. If somebody could set that up, I would do it, but I don't know Ro Khanna. I have the reach I have the platform I have. I'm not saying that Pisco or Josiah are like the big fish in the sea. I'm saying that they're the ones I have access to. Right. So like, and what am I going to use my voice, however limited it might be, to accomplish? And, you know, like the fact that I don't have the opportunity to debate Senator Warren on this is a shame, but I don't. Right. So like, if they would like to set it up and give me a forum to debate Senator Warren or Ro Khanna, I am delighted and would accept. But I just don't think that's in the cards.
Well, I think it will never happen. Even if Ro Khanna grew up in the house next door to you, right? At this point in time, no politician on the federal level is going to debate anybody about anything serious, because even if they're doing it in good faith, and even if they win the debate, it's political suicide, because they're going to actually have to speak their mind to a wide audience. Like, even if Ro Khanna was set up with you, there'd be no way that they would actually debate the topic as it stands.
No,
why would that be stupid?
Yeah. Well, hey, I do want to keep it moving. I'm sorry. I know I want to chat, but I know I'm looking at the clock and all the people in backstage.
No,
shout out your podcast, buddy. Where can
I say one last thing before I shout my podcast out? It was just about the whole Andrew Wilson's a Christian nationalist and want to take the 17th away or whatever. It's like, that's not the position. The position is that his argument as a critique is that repealing the 17th would be preferable to the status quo for getting a good moral outcome. He's not saying my goal is damn the torpedoes. We're appealing the 17th no matter how we have to do it. So I just wanted to make that distinction clear. So yeah.
I mean, I took him. I knew he was baiting me, but I think he was saying like he said like hypothetically if Andrew held this position, and I said I don't think Andrew holds that position. Right. But look, I don't think I hope I've been transparent that me and Andrew do not agree on a lot of things, and there are certain things. There are certain things that like we might have like really serious disagreements on, right? And it might be the case that he and I debate those disagreements at some point. But I don't see Andrew's finger on the button of the self-destruct system for the country. So that's a little different.
I think Andrew's very politically moderate and is more working towards getting his moral goals to have a better moral society, and he'll work within whatever political boundaries there are and advocate for his position, but nothing correct. That's my just read after watching him so much. But yeah. So I have my Little Miss channel here, which is it's great, but it's just like pictures of my daughter and I playing Legos. So if you're into that, then you're probably in the Epstein files, in which case they'll find you. If you're into metal, rock music, and poetry and myth, this podcast will become your tomb. I bet Shapingro will put it out in the chat. Did a live today about Greek mythology. We analyzed every Sleep Token song in order, my musical brother and I, going through the lyrics, the myth, the implications, and we take about an hour and a half a song. So if you're into that kind of thing, please like and subscribe, or if you just like my pretty face, like and subscribe. Always a pleasure, Ryan.
Good talking to you, buddy. Hey, what's up, Mr. Brass? Thanks for stopping by.
Greetings. Good to talk to you.
Good to have you here. What's on your mind?
It had a little bit to do with the Eastman stuff, and you kind of dived into that a little bit with a couple of the past callers. Mm-hmm. So I guess I maybe missed you covering like the Eastman memos and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted you to broaden your thoughts on that, but I also want to bring in the fact that you use the word false electors, and I don't like that, and I'll tell you why. Is because it was used to prosecute individual citizens that were caught up in a game that I think was very malicious, and even maybe goes against the load-bearing walls you speak of, or what have you, in my opinion.
Okay, how so? Because again, to my knowledge, I've not heard a great argument that the alternatives or false, whatever you want to call them, slates of electors were actually reflective of the state governments at issue or the people who voted there. So is there an argument that you want to lay on me that those were in fact the valid slates of electors, or did you want me to talk about Eastman's memos more broadly and why I think that they represent kind of, like I would say, chipping away at a load-bearing norm that needs to be protected?
I do want you to speak on the latter, but I guess you're misunderstanding me. I don't know that they were the alternative slates of electors bound by the government or what have you. In my opinion and what I have seen, I thought that was Eastman's goal, to put it back to the states to make this decision overall. But the thing that I think is malicious is the prosecution by the states on those individuals. I think that is political lawfare and was ridiculous. A lot of the political lawfare that happened after 2020.
All right, so let me, since we've been talking about it, I've been trying to find a good copy so I can pull it up. So this is not going to make this is not a topic that's going to win me a ton of fans tonight, I don't think. But here we go. So let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit. So this is Eastman's second memo, right? So he starts by laying out a bunch of potential election irregularities. None of this isn't really what we're talking about, but none of these, to my knowledge, were actually borne out in court, which is part of the problem. Is that, he's writing to the president. He's like, look, we have all these irregularities, but then none of this actually was borne out, and I don't think he adequately flagged the low probability there. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So what he points out is that the 12th Amendment provides that the president of the Senate, which means the vice president, shall, in the presence of the Senate and the House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. So that's what the 12th Amendment says. And he says there is very solid legal authority and historic precedent for the view that the President of the Senate does the counting, including the resolution of disputed electoral votes. So what he's arguing for is that the vice president not only can do the counting, but can decide whether or not a ballot is disputed and therefore shouldn't be counted. And then he goes on to war game it, and he says, look, here's what's going to happen. If the VP opens the ballot and he counts all the ballots as certified, Biden will win. But if the VP opens the ballot and he counts them in different ways, for example, and he lays out these 3 examples where Biden all wins. But then he says, well, but if VP Pence opens the ballots and determines on his own which is valid, asserting that the authority to make that determination is his under the 12th Amendment, is his alone, and anything to the contrary in the law is unconstitutional, then he lays out these scenarios where he can send it back to the Congress in different ways. My problem with this is if the vice president on his own authority has the power to determine which ballots are valid or invalid, then he can pick the president. Right? And that's actually what Eastman's laying out here is like, look, if you count the ballots, if you count the electors, you lose. But
isn't that exactly what happened with Hawaii?
I don't know what you mean.
Back in 1960, whatever, Nixon versus JFK.
Yeah, I'm not deeply familiar with the facts of that, so I'm not sure I can answer how similar or different they are. I guess what I'm getting at to you is kind of as just a matter of like logic and principles, is if the vice president has full unilateral authority over determining whether the ballots are good or bad, and he's a member of the president's political party, doesn't that strike you as kind of like a fatal flaw in the system?
Yes, it is kind of I do see your point on that thing, but I mean, that's why I said look into the Nixon versus JFK and where they actually read an alternate slate of electors and awarded that alternate slate of electors, because the alternate slate of electors has been used since then and multiple times, even up until Trump versus Hillary. And I think Eastman was arguing something. Now, that's where I get into the court system, but that's what bothers me about using that word false electors, because the people that were nominated as these alternate electors were prosecuted to the nth degree, and I find that tyranny.
Well, okay, let's assume for the sake of argument, because I don't know the details of every single state and I couldn't recall them, even the ones I do know, I couldn't recall. But let's assume for the sake of argument that they actually were false slates of electors, i.e. the state held a vote and correctly sent that elector to DC, and that then a group of people created a knowingly false slate of electors and they sent it to DC in order to kind of like throw a monkey wrench in the process. That doesn't strike you as something that like is plausibly illegal?
Yes, if it happened in that order, but my understanding is it would happen in the opposite order while they were still arguing several different cases and they were getting dismissed on latches and what have you, that the alternate slate of electors was nominated prior to the Congresses of the state actually picking the correct slate or endorsing or whatever their particular procedures.
By who? Like who authorized these people to send a slate of electors?
I think that has to happen on all occasions like with the political game, is it not? I may be completely wrong, but that was my understanding. This is the information that I've heard. Now, I'm not trying to argue necessarily whether, if that's not the way it went down, if it's the way it went down. I cannot guarantee that because I'm not one of those electors. I just find the tyranny and the prosecution of those people.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm saying is, like, let's imagine a scenario, right? Like, the state says this is the slate of electors and they nominate them. And then after the state nominated them, they got prosecuted for being electors. I think I would agree with you that sounds tyrannical. But let's say, on the other hand, that they were not properly nominated. Like, it was like one or two state senators said, hey, we support this plan, but obviously it didn't get voted for, but let's do it anyway. Right? That probably, at least I think you would agree, would be properly prosecuted, right? Like, if they were pretending they had state authority, but they didn't really.
Right. But I know you're familiar with Rekieta law.
Yeah.
He's the one that kind of broke it down when it was happening to me, that these electors, and he had a debate with Destiny way back when about this, that these electors were picked, and they had to be picked to the safe harbor date. They were picked way before the state certified. Like, the electors are picked and then they're certified.
Well, is there a Daz is paid $5 to remind me that Nixon chose the slate of electors that were voted by the people. Oh, so there was so the slate that Nixon chose from Hawaii was actually the correct slate, not the alternative slate. So that's an interest. It sounds like an important fact. Well, Mo, I'm gonna have a hard time responding to Nick's video because I haven't seen it. Would you mind linking it to me so I can watch it? That sounds interesting.
I don't even know if I can find that. It's been so. It was literally when Destiny was going on his ultimate rampage or what have you. I would have to dig.
All right. Well, if anybody in the chat has a link to that Nick Rekieta video, I know I'm supposed to watch his Marbury v. Madison video as well. So I'm well behind on reaction videos. But Mo, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming up, buddy.
Oh, I appreciate your time. I enjoyed you. I've been casually watching you since Laid Back Law and what have you. And I will say before I go, I appreciate you kicking good old Pisco in the teeth, because if you watch, I know you've interacted with Good Logic. If you go back and watch his debate with Pisco on Tim Pool's The Culture War, he acts the entire same until he comes up against a real lawyer that can counter his facts of law that he always tries to rely on and to enact his tyranny. He only looks at the outcome. Everybody's pointed this out. He's only looking for his outcome to be correct, and he'll use whatever argument he can to reach that outcome.
Yeah, and it's also funny to me that to the extent that anyone's crying about me being aggressive with him, I'm like, okay, he's a little terminally aggressive. Yeah, that's his basic MO. So, seems fair. Seems like what's good for the goose is good for the gander to me. But yeah, Mo, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, buddy.
Thank you. Have a great night.
What is going on, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, not much. So originally I was going to come back to debate or to continue our discussion from last time. It was about the 17th Amendment, but there's actually something a lot more pressing coming up, and I've mentioned this in super chats, and this is scaring me. It's the fact that both online and in real life, it's mostly far left people, but a lot of normies, they really do not get that part in the Declaration that begins with "Prudence hath dictate." People that listen, what that's referring to is the fact that you shouldn't just overthrow the government willy-nilly. It's got to be a last resort. And what that basically means is a lot of people that are quote unquote centrists, they think now is the time. And I don't know, it's probably a lot of things. I'm sure probably on top of that is the Epstein stuff.
Yeah,
and
and just
we got to do it now.
to show people what you're talking about. You know, we talk a lot about the beginning of paragraph 2.
Yeah, everyone knows this. Schoolhouse Rock.
And then it says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, securing natural rights, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And then the point you're flagging, prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, right? And this is the point, that the longer the union has existed, the more reasons you have to invoke the fence, Chesterton's fence, the more reasons you have to risk going down with the ship to protect it, because you shouldn't lightly assume that it's fundamentally broken, especially if it's been good for a long time. That doesn't mean it can't fundamentally break, but you need to defend it. And that's why I was laying so hard on the tyranny point with Pisco, because packing the court in a hyper-partisan way for the purpose of them to amend the Constitution from the bench is a loophole in the Constitution our founders didn't know existed. We didn't even have judicial review back then. It's a flaw in the system. It shouldn't exist. There should obviously be a constitutional amendment fixing the number of justices at 9. Like, this is a loophole that needs to be fixed, not exploited.
Sure, although I should explain, like, that when I say overthrow, I mean, like, and what the people I've talked to, they mean literal, like actual violent overthrow of the government in a revolution where people will die.
Well, yeah,
like a lot of people believe this scares me.
Well, but this is why I get so fixated on this court packing point, because let's say the Dems do what I accuse Pisco of wanting to do, right? Now, don't you think that you might see like states try to secede at that point?
Oh, of course they would. Why wouldn't they?
Right, and like that's when you get to the point where you're like, oh, even if prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, you guys have hijacked the Constitution. It's not a light and transient cause. Like, exactly. It cuts to the whole basis of the bargain by which states became subordinate to the federal government. And it's basically like you can't prove the doomers right. You have to steer away from the skid, even if you get close to it. And it bothers me to see somebody like Pisco, who has a law degree and is obviously not a dumb guy, steering straight into the skid.
Right. I guess and I think the thing that shocks me is that, like, sometimes like they won't even believe that, like, oh no, he never said that, because the founding fathers talked about overthrowing the government all the time. He didn't say that. Of course he said, it's right there. Or like, okay, he said that. Well, he was wrong. Yeah, we should do it right now. It's like they really think like, yeah, this, like, now is the time. It's the go time. And like, intuitively, I think like, no, probably. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. Probably is not a good idea. For a whole host of reasons. It's just so risky. Even if you succeed, you don't know, like, oh, whoops, we could have be living under a communist government, or whoops, we could be living under some kind of religious theocracy. Like, it's like super, super risky. Like, how do I explain in terms that like the normal person will understand, like, no, you really need to be careful, grass is greener syndrome. Like, you got to be really careful with this kind of rhetoric.
Yeah, I think that there's, unfortunately, and I don't know how to fix this problem, but there's a thing that's happened where life has been really good for a long time, and people start hyper fixating on things that are less than perfect because life has been so good. Like, we haven't had a draft in a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people think that it's impossible that we would be drafted again. It's not. Like, these things probably will happen again in the future. And I think it gets people really removed from the reality of what they're suggesting. It's like the people who are like, oh, I'll clearly be, after the communist utopia comes, I'll just live on my farm and teach painting. It's like,
or like, oh, when the Nazi revolution comes up, yeah, I'll be one of the generals or commissars. It's like, no, you're gonna be working in the factory. Like, shut up.
Yeah, you're gonna be against the wall. That's what's gonna happen. You're gonna be against the wall, and then they're gonna shoot you. That's what's gonna happen by the odds. So yeah, I think that's a real thing. But also, this is a symptom of this kind of I don't know. I do not have a great way to combat this. It's really tricky. I have a friend who spends a lot of time with think tanks working on this problem. But it's like, how do you combat the fact that people have gotten into this reflexive habit of just opposing America and the West at every turn? Like, people in America are uniquely fixated with talking about how shitty and terrible America is. And it's literally the best place to live that's ever existed in human history. Like, it's wild to me. Like, maybe you can make some argument like, oh, I might prefer personally to live in Scandinavia than America right now as a matter of preference. But like, if you look at the arc of human history, you're living in the best place at the best time by and large. And, people are so black-pilled about it when they live lives that are, by any metric on the broader human scale, unimaginably good. And that's tough to fight.
I think I mentioned this before. I think a big thing is, again, we're approaching the 250th anniversary of the country, which is 200. That means Declaration is going to be 250, meaning the language is old. Like, a lot of people, modern people, they don't understand the subtleties. Like, it's not like as indecipherable as Shakespeare. Like, obviously, like for me, like, I can't understand that. I can understand the Declaration. A lot of people, they just can't. Like, I've shared that part, the prudence, all that with people, and they thought like, yes, yeah, that's why we should overthrow the government. And they're like, no, I'm telling you the opposite. I'm disagreeing with you. Like, they're not getting it. It's like they need kind of cliff notes.
Great point from Loodlemus with the 5. Thanks, buddy. This point is precisely why the progressive march through the institution is dangerous. We have 5 generations without prudence in their vocabulary. It's an interesting. I thought about this the other day. Something very similar, which is like, there used to be, I'm going to use like my nerdy D&D terms. There used to be like a admitted distinction between intelligence and wisdom. Like, someone could be very, very book smart, but not be wise.
Yeah.
Right. But to be wise, like, what are you wise about? You would have to be wise about like a shared religious or moral understanding that you make good decisions in light of. Right. And in a world where we've kind of shattered, I don't know. I don't hear about people being talked about as wise or prudent anymore.
Yeah. I think also, like, what you're saying about like, oh, people, like, they don't know how good they have it. I think a lot of that's true. But on the other hand, that's not to discount a lot of real problems people have, in life. And then on top of that, I don't want to get too much into this, but of course that they would say like, nope, the Epstein stuff is really that bad. It's really that. And it is
bad.
And they think like that's the go time. Like, they're never going to get justice. The only justice is we just overthrow everything and hit that reset button and start over. And it's like, you don't know the kind of fire you're playing with. You just don't.
Yeah. You gotta think that the risk of near certain death and insufferable pain for you and your immediate family is worth it. Right. And there are situations where it is. But like, don't do that lightly.
Yeah. I like a lot, like, people, I kind of jokingly say to myself sometimes, like, you know what? Everybody just needs to be voluntary. Everybody, you, me, everybody needs to be voluntarily put into camps and either forced to smoke pot or be like sedated and just calm down, because everybody's just so like wound up to like these. Well, they probably say this in every age, but like, it really seems now everybody's just so wound up. It's like, God, just take some deep breaths. God.
Yeah, I mean, and that's also part of like the online like touch grass thing, where it's like, you know, like, one thing I'll notice, right? Like, you know, and like I said, like Rob and I like disagree about a lot of things, right? But at the end of the day, we're both married. We both have kids. We're both like very, very invested in the future of our kids. So, you know, as much as Rob can be like polemic and, you know, and a populist and all this stuff, if you see him interacting with this chat, when the black pillars show up, he fights with them, right? Because like, he's like, no, I don't want to live in a world where my kids are experiencing a violent revolution. Are you out of your mind?
Oh, exactly.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
No, but part of it's just like being a real person and not like only online, where you're like, no, like I have kids, I have a life, I have a family, I have a community. Like I can't possibly be in the situation where I'm advocating for that, because it would ruin everything.
Yeah. I was going to add like at least one person who I've talked to in real life has kids and has said this. So I don't know if that's just naivete, or at least maybe it's just like,
well, that makes me angry.
I don't know if they're saying
that makes me like legit angry.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this person like meant we should overthrow the government now. Maybe it was like, well, you shouldn't be against revolution because we were founded on a revolution and therefore that's hypocritical. It's like, no, not all of them were good. But I don't want to misrepresent this person. It's just, I'm just saying, like, there are people that maybe think that way.
Oh, and by the way, Cervantes, thanks for the link. I got it on X. Appreciate you. Yeah, there's some, it worries me. I think that there's like some work to be done in terms of like selling positivity, just in terms of like, things are not perfect, but they're also like far, far, far from the worst case scenario. You know, like just in terms of like, there's a variety of available food. You know, like you're not stabbing anyone for it. You can purchase it with legal tender. You know, like this is
like 2 types of gruel. That's it.
Yeah, it's a different thing. Well, Sula, is there anything else on your mind? I do want to try to get through the end, because we're gonna start hitting my limit in the next 30-40 minutes or so.
Little bit about 17th Amendment. One more. Okay, I'll continue what you were saying before. You mentioned like a state, if they wanted to, could have an advisory election. That's 100% true. I don't think they would ever get that far, because it would be political suicide. Because the fact of the matter is, people don't like having their choices taken away from them, and that's how it's going to be seen. If that gets repealed, people have their choices taken away. But also, all of them, even if this would get repealed, all of them would except one state that I know for sure probably wouldn't. They would all have advisory elections anyway. The one exception would be Utah, and that's because they're the only state that actually voted against the ratification of the 17th. I think the other ones either just didn't vote either way at all, or they voted for it after it was officially ratified. But like, they are, to this day, they are very butthurt about that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about some of these amendments is like, the 17th Amendment will not be repealed, even if I think it should be. If for no other reason, then good luck getting the senators to vote for that.
Yeah.
You know,
well, if I remember correctly, I think the reason why the senators even voted to propose it originally was because I think there were some states that were proposing an Article 5 convention, and that scared them. They're like, because there's always that ever-present risk of like a runaway convention. They're like, okay, we'll give you what we want. We'll do it through the other way. We're not going to don't do this. Like they got scared into it.
Yeah, no, it's true. That rings a bell. I'm not 100% positive, but I think that's right. At least that's what I recall. And the thing about it ultimately is it's just like, I don't know. So many of these senators feel like national politicians with like entrenched power bases. You know, like I don't think of them as being unanimous with their state's interests in any real way, which is, and maybe I should, but it doesn't, you know, like I feel like Chuck Schumer is a brand, you know, he more than he is like a state representative. And I think that's a bummer. Like, I feel like they're entrenched by name recognition rather than by ties to the state and its interests officially, which I think would be better. But I don't see a pathway to changing that.
I could probably see it. Yeah, there's probably a lot of truth to that, I'll say.
Hey, Suleiman, I always appreciate your comments and your super chats and your wisdom. Which a word that I'm going to use wisdom and prudence more often, so people.
Okay, and so will I.
Yeah, people we're going to bring it back. So thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, take care. Yeah, thank you.
Isaac, the kind. What's going on, buddy? By the way, Isaac, James, VTubing. That's the 3 that are backstage. I'm not taking any more because I'm going to run out of steam. So I'm going to try to make sure I honor my commitments, though, and get through all the call-ins. Isaac the Kind, what is going on, buddy?
Yo, how are you doing?
Well.
So I'm under the impression that you're a moral realist. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I'm not convinced of moral realism.
Sure.
And I guess that... so you spoke to Lance Bush, and I think he sort of explained the tripartite distinction to you between trivial, false, unintelligible.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm sort of curious if you think that you have a view that escapes that characterization. I'm skeptical, just to put my own cards on the table. Sorry, I'm out of breath.
Entirely possible. I think if you watch the conversation with me and Lance, what quickly happens because I'm a non-naturalist realist and I'm specifically a theist or bare theist or deist, is that the conversation will quickly stop being one of metaethics and become one of metaphysics.
Okay. So you say that you're a non-naturalist realist.
Correct? Well, okay, let me put it this way. Moral realism is the view that there's at least one stance independent moral fact. Yeah.
Well, it depends how you mean fact. It's usually there's 3 parts to it. Moral statements are truth apt, at least one is true, and they're stance independently true. So if by fact you're baking in those first 2 things, that it's a moral statement and it's true, then
the key point is that
just express the 3.
Not everything has to be moral. Not everything has to be stance independent. Not every moral language has to be true or truth apt in that way. There has to be at least one, is the point I'm getting at.
At least one true.
If there is one true moral fact that is objectively true and stance independent, right? Then moral realism is true.
By fact, you just mean a proposition. Like there's some statement that is some moral statement that's truth apt that is true.
No, I don't necessarily mean a statement. Because that's a little bit of loading the dice, because I'll just lay it out and you can see why. The metaphysic, which for a purpose of metaethics, I'm going to just say is foundational, because doing metaphysics is a whole other kettle of fish, is that God exists with an eternal, unchanging nature and is perfectly good. The ramifications of that is that there would be a correct moral index. There is one index that is correct because there is a perfectly good reference point. Now, Lance, in one of his articles, for example, and we talked about this in the stream, said that it would be moral realism if you indexed your beliefs to astrological signs. It might be ridiculous, but it would be moral realism because moral signs are stance independent, right? My view on like a bare theistic framework is that there is one correct index because there is one God who is perfectly good. So there's one correct index for moral statements, and you index onto that. This is why Lance said that's moral realism when I talked to him, because I don't think he agrees with my metaphysic, but the challenge on Lance's tripartite would be that it's false. Like you could argue that like there is no such being, and we could do the metaphysics on it. But like if indexing to an astrological sign is moral realism, then surely indexing to a perfectly good, unchanging God is also moral realism.
Well, it depends how we set things up. So this is why I was first asking what we think realism is, just to make sure we're on the same page. Because it sounded like you said your view was of the non-naturalist variety. So the way I understand moral realism, I think this is standard in the contemporary metaethics literature, is it's the view that moral statements are truth apt, at least one is true, and they're stance independently true. Do you mean moral realism in some different way?
Okay. Well, let's say the way that I framed it. I say the following: God is
Wait,
good.
sorry. The way I'm asking about.
No. I'm accepting it and giving you this. Take the statement.
Wait, but I'm confused. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding you.
No. It's my show. Let me. You laid out.
I'm saying I don't understand.
Careful.
I need to understand what you're saying. Hello.
And next caller. Oh, James, sorry, you're not. You're not on your mic. Hey, James, I'll give you a second. While James is getting himself ready,
I'm hoping you could hear me.
I can hear you just fine, James. I appreciate the last caller, and I appreciate having the conversation. When you are calling into somebody else's show, if you interrupt them, they might kick you off. That is a thing that may happen. So anyway, James, always a pleasure seeing you. We talk, we root for each other, then we fight, then we talk again. How's things going with you, James? Man of many names.
They've been interesting. I've been reevaluating a lot of my participation in online spaces. But I want to hit you with a couple of thoughts.
By the way, that's probably for the good.
Yeah. I would say so.
These are rarely personally productive.
Yeah, and they've been anti-productive as of late. But I wanted to ask, why do conservatives maintain this consistent year zero position that everything is fine, but the wins of the left are right around the corner?
Yeah, it's a weird thing that they.
But why do you? Sorry.
Well, I don't. Well, if you think I do it, I don't quite know what you mean. Then I thought you were describing something else, and I was about to launch into it, but maybe I don't understand what you mean. Can you explain?
Well, for one example would be the idea that packing the Supreme Court is like this new enterprise into tyranny that would totally dissolve the country. But Wicker v. Filburn is exactly that. It was done under threat of court packing. Would that not be country dissolving insofar as like how we knew it?
Oh yeah, I think Wicker v. Filburn came very, very close. And the odd part is that the court was never actually packed. What it did is it altered the Constitution through implication, and I actually think it did. I don't want to say irreparable, but close. Like the damage that caused was lasting and pernicious. But because the court was never actually packed, what happened is it started us down this path of treating Supreme Court justices like politicians and using them to amend the Constitution from the bench, which is a very, very dangerous path. And I hope one that we can recover from. I'm not positive we can, but I'm optimistic that we can. If you start doing it with naked court packing on top of that as a norm, like every 4 years we expand the court and every 4 years they rip up the Constitution and give us a new one, pretty quickly people are going to be like, okay, I'm taking my toys and going home. Fuck this. This is a game. Like, why on earth would I pretend to give a shit about some legal principle when you guys are just going to change the rules on me every 4 years? It's a joke. So it could get a lot worse, is I guess the point I'm making.
Sure, but that's sort of the baseline that most people exist in today. The Second Amendment has not, broadly speaking, protected gun rights. We've had some major wins in recent years.
Major wins.
You know, I come from New Jersey. You lived in New Jersey.
Yeah.
There was no constitution in New Jersey.
Well,
anywhere that people with my skin color are discriminated against for jobs or for college admissions, there is no constitution there. It doesn't exist.
But let me pitch you on that, because what there isn't is like an absolute Second Amendment right, but what there is like a Supreme Court that decided Heller. And then Heller meant that when New York put in like very restrictive may issue gun rules, it went up. It got challenged. New York lost. Now, New York being New York, they're going to keep trying, and people are going to have to keep challenging it. But there's a difference between not liking, like if you're playing a board game, right?
Mhm.
There's a difference between not liking the state of play and being like, holy shit, I think I'm about to lose, or holy shit, this game might not be a lot of fun. I don't like this game. This is a little bit fucked up, right? And then like there's that moment when the toddler just fucking knocks the pieces on the ground and just starts jumping up and down them and screaming. Like,
Right.
like there's a lot about the way our country is that I think could be better. And those are fights worth picking. But there's a difference between that and burn it all down. Burn it all down is when you're like, holy shit, this is no longer even a game. This is just toddlers rampaging around, hitting each other's with sticks, and I don't want to play anymore. Like, and I don't think we're there yet. I hope we never get there. The reason I was so hard on Pisco is I could not imagine, like, if someone asked me, they're like, Ryan, under the current legal framework, what is the thing people could do that was the most maximally accelerationist thing you could think of?
Mhm.
The two things I would have come up with are the Eastman memo and the Pisco plan. Those are the two things, right? Like if you're just like, okay, fuck it, we no longer have democracy for voting for president. Fuck it, we no longer have a constitution. Those are like the two, if you were gonna run headfirst into the train, those are the two things I would pick. And part is just like, holy fuck, lawyers, can we as a profession just stop telling people to do this shit? Like, clearly we must know better. Like, even if they don't know better, we should know better. Like, fuck yourself. That's why I got so animated about it.
Well, I'm sure that would be the most accelerationist position that you could hold today. But that's a sliding relative scale based on what's already been accomplished. And if I've already been the victim of the toddler for the past near 29 years of my life, then I don't see it. Seems to me that, like, if you were to admit that, it would be admitting at the very least 29 years of abject total failure, focusing on the wrong things, giving up political capital for no reason, for fun, maybe spite, and never accomplishing anything of note. Republicans had two major wins, which were the Supreme Court, getting a good Supreme Court and overturning Chevron. But come 2028, we're going to get another 10 million migrants come in.
Well, this is the thing, man. I think that I guess like the difference between me and like a black pill perspective like that is, with Trump, and by the way, as I always say, there's tons I criticize about him, but I've seen major rollback of progressivism during his limited time in the second term. Like, and if you go back to the first term, even more, where you're saying like, okay, massive deregulation because Chevron's gone. It'll be hard to re-regulate because Chevron's gone. You can challenge these things now. That's huge. Dobbs signaling that we're cutting back on substantive due process and we're no longer inventing constitutional rights, returning these things to the states for their decision. Great. Dude, I love the current Supreme Court. But even more than that, like the idea that it is no longer like when I was in like corporations and corporate professionalism during like the Biden years, and corporations are very risk sensitive, right? They don't want to get legal problems. There was tons of risk if they did not have programs that benefited minorities specifically and did not help, like straight white men. Now there's risk. They understand that if they're discriminating either direction, there's risk, and they've changed their policies. Like it's not to the extent that you might want, but there's been a massive rollback of kind of like the DEI type initiatives that I do view as like specifically anti-white racism. There's been a massive rollback and wins in tons of places along these lines. So I guess what I'm saying is like, it hasn't fixed all these problems overnight, but there's actually wins on the board. And while you can rack up wins, the game's not over. When the game's over is when they're like, oh, fuck it. It turns out, that Second Amendment, we actually think it only applies to militias. Eat shit, states. right? Like, and that's what you get with court packing when you're like, okay, they're just going to say fuck it, like we're just going to override everything. Does that make sense?
I'm deeply suspicious of it because I want to address like each point kind of holistically. I guess when I look at the idea that these are massive wins. Since the pre-COVID era, have you seen the statistic floating around that something like 90% of new U.S. jobs have gone to people born outside the U.S.?
I have not. That doesn't sound accurate to me. But if you have a stat, I'd look at it.
If you've been in the job market in the past few years, in like especially in the professions that have been consistently drained or have been experiencing heavy layoffs for the past however many years, like I think it's also far-fetched, but in the way that it might be more like 50% or 70% or somewhere in that range. 90 seems high because it seems absurd.
Yeah, that sounds that I mean, my Bayesians on that are like incredibly high. That sounds wrong. I mean, I did like a quick Google. This is not an apples to apples comparison. It sounds like according to the Department of Labor in 2024, foreign-born workers accounted for 19.2% of the labor force, which you could argue is too high. Now, you were saying of new jobs, which is different than labor force, so that's not apples to apples.
Significant, and a more important statistic, because it's the people who are my age coming into the workforce, and I entered the workforce a lot earlier than the rest of my compatriots, but it's important for me in case I want to switch jobs, or the rest of people my age who are now coming out with masters and such and finding themselves needing to go back and live with their parents, or the median age, new home buyers being 41 years old. That's a median age. These are policy failures, civilizational failures, to where your young people are being replaced or outsourced to other countries.
I mean, and I think that, but this is what I mean. Like, for example, we have under Trump net negative migration.
Sure.
Right. So is that going to solve your problem overnight? No. Could we lose an election and have that trend reversed in a way that I think you'd find very unsatisfying? Yes. Because it's an artifact of executive policy, not of any binding law going forward. But that, to me, is hardly an argument for doomerism. That's an argument for winning the next election, right? Like, yeah, no, I'm not saying you are, but like there's a trend that I've noticed in some online spaces where people are like they just want to run into the tracks, right? And it's like, well, shit, if you're really worried about migration, that sounds like a reason to vote. Because I do agree with you, by the way, that you could have an outcome in 2028, and I don't think open borders policies have become less popular on the left. I think they're less vocal about them because they were so catastrophic. But I don't this is the James Carville problem. Like I worry that they're gonna get in power and start doing all the shit that they might be unwilling to admit out loud that they want to do.
And they've done it already.
Yeah.
Like the hypothetical doomsday scenario that you've laid out was just 2020, where the market was flooded with foreign nationals. Even Republican governors like Greg Abbott were heavily incentivized and flooded Texas with foreign nationals. I sort of am one because I'm from New Jersey, right? So I might as well be. I am as alien to Texas as an Indian man might be. But I guess what I'm calling for is I think it's useful for a lot of people who are politically entrenched to dismiss these claims as doomerism, but it's I think it's just like an honest policy prescription, because if you say, hey, these are the real state of things, your next generation cannot get new jobs, cannot afford an education, cannot afford healthcare because they're forced to subsidize lower classes, people who are barely even people. Half the country is on welfare, and they can't afford homes like that. That this is a civilizational failure if your next generation cannot continue because they are, because they're being forced to support the old. That would readjust your priorities. And I get suspicious when these people get dismissed as doomers because it seems like it keeps you guys from readjusting your priorities.
But I guess what you're saying, I hear the concern, but I guess what I'm hearing is like, a policy problem that could be solved rather than a systemic failure, if that makes sense, right? Like you could, like, bad policy can be fixed. Like when I'm in like the toddlers are beating me with trains mode, that typically means that like we're at a game that's collapsing, right? The rules no longer hold. And I think there's like there's a risk there, but I hope we're not there yet. By the way, from Commando for the 10, thank you. Rube needs to upload him felting Wick. I don't want to watch a bunch of lids to enjoy the felting. I think I have me reacting to it on my channel. So if you want to see Rube felting Wick, you can watch it with my commentary on my channel. I don't know, Rube, if you uploaded it anywhere.
I did. I have it as a separate. It's on a live. I don't have it as a solo video. Maybe I should do that. I should re-upload it as a solo video.
Yeah, I think people would enjoy seeing that. Gang, I'm really running out of speed. I was planning on dropping in like 10 minutes. I see.
You want to move on to the next guy? I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming up. I know that I've been having VTuber waiting for a long time. Thank you, Rube, for coming on. I appreciate the chat always.
Yeah.
VTuber, what is going on? Long wait. I apologize for that.
Nah, it's all good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I had to fidget around with the audio. Whenever I go on Sean's call-ins, it always like messes up for me. By the way, can I swear like here, or is like this a family show?
You can swear, though. Don't do anything that's going to get me TOS'd.
No. I won't use any gamer words. I just wanted to say Pisco sucks. This whole Supreme Court packing and just a power grab by the the communists. Let's just call it spade a spade. I wanted to say too. I first found out about Pisco, and ironically, I found out about you through Sean, potentially criminal.
Oh yeah. No, Sean's good people. Like Sean and I have like legal vibe streams where we're kind of talking about the law, but we're also just like hanging out.
Yeah, I love those streams. But I found out about Pisco when Sean was on his stream, and he was doing an interview with him. I wanted to say too, Pisco's taste in music totally sucks. It was right before the mayoral election. Oh no, during the mayoral election when they were counting the votes, and he put on some like Latino elevator music. It was total crap, and he plays music occasionally. I have no idea what the hell is wrong with him.
Not a fan of Pisco's music. Oh,
no.
Okay. Well, all right. It looks like wow, that's a shame. My good buddy Destiny was backstage, but I was gonna wrap at 12. I guess he doesn't want to schedule something. Okay. Well, Destiny,
geez, what a shame.
Destiny, if you want to chat, let me know when you want to chat. I was gonna wrap up at 12 because I got work tomorrow. But if Destiny, if you're watching and you would like to talk about something, shoot me a message or unblock me and shoot me a message, and we can chat. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say I have two things, and then you can go get your sleep. I wanted to say, ideally, the number of I don't know if you ever heard of this study, but ideally, for people in power, the ideal number, if you're going to have a rotunda of people giving judgment, the ideal number is 8. It was a Swiss study done in the late 1800s, and they replicated it a few times throughout since then. And it says that that's the ideal number for a functional like group judgment on like tasks, administrative duties, and whatnot. It says that under that it's not ideal, but over that, and if you gradually increase it more, it becomes more dysfunctional. Are you familiar with this study?
No, I'm not.
If I can find it, is there a Discord? I can DM it to you.
Oh yeah. Can you guys put the Discord in chat? I should probably pin that, but I pinned the link. Yeah, we definitely have a Discord. You'd be delighted to have you stop by and take a look at it.
Yeah. I'll send it to you if you're interested. I wanted to say though, this whole like thing, like not to like veer off into something completely out of left field, but I wanted to say, do you think that the United States, as it currently stands, is going to continue to survive, like for the foreseeable future? Because I think that the U.S. is going to collapse and balkanize.
God, I hope you're wrong. I'm betting on it not happening. I'm betting on us. I'm betting on the people making it work, even though it seems difficult sometimes. And I don't know that we'll succeed, but I'm certainly going to go down swinging. So that's where I'm at, man. I think that I think the danger is closer than it's been in a long time. But that's can I be real with you, man? Like,
yeah, go for it.
I could just go make money as a lawyer and not talk online, right? Like, this is not helping my life or my mental sanity. But I'd like to think that in some small part, what I'm doing here is hopefully progressing progressing the narrative in a useful way.
No, yeah, I understand that. And thank you for doing what you do. You know, you keep people level-headed, informed, and, incite wisdom, not to blow smoke up your ass or anything, but like, seriously, like what you do, Sean does, Legal Mindset, Andrea, like, Andrea Burkhart, I don't know if you know her. Like, you always need lawyers, and honestly, we could use more of them to get more people a fair day in court. I'm just saying, though, that I personally think that Europe will be fine and other first world countries will be fine, but I think that the United States is going to balkanize sometime between the mid to late 2030s, maybe sometime in the 2040s. I first heard about this through, I don't know if you know who Vox Day is. I haven't heard from this guy in a while. Yeah. He made these points and gave like a few reasons as to why he thinks this. First off, well, one, corruption in the U.S. government, but two, mostly it's the USA becoming increasingly diverse, both multiracially and multi-ethnically, and through foreign influence. This tends to spell disaster because it seems like no nation really kind of functions well if there's like multi racial or multi-ethnic groups like living like amongst each other. It kind of spells disaster. I think that Europe
doesn't that seem like it's I can't imagine there's historic evidence for that. Like, I grew up in the 90s. We were very multiracial, multi-ethnic, and things seemed pretty awesome.
Well, no, like white people were still like not to delve the stream into like iffy territory, but like white people or people of European stock were still like 80% of the country. And if trajectory is anything to go by, we'll be a minority by the late 2040s.
So here's, I guess, why I disagree with this take. And it's hard for me not to kind of like be a little animated about it. Like, my family's Irish. When we immigrated to the country, we were like not white. You know what I'm saying? Like Irish people being considered part of white is like pretty new. Like, Irish people got shit on for a long fucking time when they showed up, and same with like Italians, same with Jews. Like, I mean, it was like the idea that like whiteness is a unifying cultural block is like relatively new, right? Like, I don't think I agree with the premise in that sense. Like, it's not like I think that there are cultures and there are people who have a philosophical background or other issues that make them not acclimate well to what is required to function in our society. And I think that we do a bad job of assimilation these days because we focus on multiculturalism instead of assimilation. But I don't know that like there's anything intrinsic about whiteness that is necessary.
Well, let me say one thing. I am a subscriber to the belief of human biodiversity, and when you bring that into the national scale, and you have the idea that the state or the government, or not the government, but the country as an organic body made up of people, and that's what creates a nation, having multi-ethnic like bodies within the country kind of creates entropy. But I wanted to say something. Let me just tell you where I think you go completely wrong. At least in one of the things you said. Irish were always considered white. Back in the 1800s, there was just considered too many of them, and also that they were Catholic, and the idea that they were more loyal to the Pope. But Irish, Italians, even Jews to an extent, were all considered white. It was just considered that they were coming in too large numbers, and that's why they wanted immigration moratoriums for them.
So I take it you disagree with the premise that people have equal moral worth?
What do you mean?
Well, if you look at our founding principles, one of them is that all men are created equal, right? That doesn't mean that they have equal abilities, but they have equal moral dignity in the eyes of their creator.
Well, I think that every life of every good person matters, but if I believe in a tabula rasa, no, a tabula rasa is nonsense.
I didn't say a tabula rasa. I said equal moral worth, equal moral dignity.
As so long as they're good, yeah. If they're not evil, then yeah, I agree that every good person has equal moral.
Well, even bad people have equal moral dignity. That's why it's just to punish them. If they were less than human, if they didn't have control of themselves, part of having equal moral worth is that you're treated as an individual. You're held accountable for your actions, not for other people's actions, because you're accountable for what you do, right?
I guess that's one way to look at it. I didn't really see it that way. I mean, yeah. I just think that horrific crime should be punished by death.
Sure.
But so yeah, I understand what you're saying. But I'm not saying any race or any people of any certain ethnic background are worth more or less than any other. It's just that we're different. One's not better than the other.
Well, but okay, so let's talk about being different. Do you mean that? Do you mean that they're different because they have cultural differences? They might have had educational differences, these sorts of things, or do you mean that there's some kind of genetic difference that is fundamentally incompatible?
Both. Everyone has different cultures and different. What do you mean? What were you going to say? Sorry.
That sounds like an awfully bold claim to say that that genetics are destiny, that people are fundamentally incapable of coexisting because they have different color skin or different racial backgrounds. That seems that strikes me as a bold and unjustifiable claim. It certainly seems to run contrary to my entire life and all of my experiences and American history.
I'm not saying there's not black people who are compatible with white people or white people who would be discompatible with Asian countries. There's going to be people who are compatible.
So then genetics is not destiny.
What I'm talking about is averages. On average, a large black population would, and in increasingly numbers, like we see with South Africa or Rhodesia, it would destroy the white establishment or the European stock establishment. You don't see that too much with Asians. With Latinos, it varies. But I do want to say I do believe in human biodiversity. There are averages depending on people's ethnicity through evolutionary processes. This doesn't mean that there aren't outliers or it doesn't just go down to the individual level. But when you're talking in massive numbers and in massive numbers of people, then you're going to get disproportionate effects and a disparate impact. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, hold on, but let's, for the record, I disagree with you, but I'm not going to try to fight you on your priors here. But let's assume that what you said is true, despite the fact that I disagree with it.
Okay.
What that would leave you with still is the following: people have equal moral worth, equal moral dignity, even if they are personally doing bad things or are not in a position to do good things, etc. But they have the right to be treated as individuals. There are some people who, even on your view, would be compatible regardless of race. Therefore, what we ought to do is figure out who is compatible and who isn't. Right? It would be, even on your view, I'm sure you would agree, it would be manifestly unjust to kick someone out of the country because you think on the basis of their race and the averages you subscribe to, which I think are wrong, but you said you subscribe to them, that they on average would be incompatible when it turns out they would be compatible.
So you would go to the individual level to see if an individual was compatible with a certain civilization.
Yeah, like when people ask me, like, if I had a magic wand, what would I do about immigration? I would say we should have immigration. We might have less of it, but we should have it. But what we should be screening for is people who want to be American, believe in American philosophy, and want to live this way of life, and not import all these crazy bad ideas that we don't want. Right? Like, I think that's very different than saying I'm then going to use race as a proxy and screen people out on that basis.
Okay, well, two things. I do believe that there are certain levels of immigration, and what we would want is it to be low and slow with high standards about who gets in. But what you also have to understand is when these people have offspring, what are the prospects that these offspring are also going to be compatible, like, or going to be similar, like their assimilated parents, versus like what they're going to be different. And I'll give you an example of this.
Wouldn't it be pretty high? Like if their traits are in part genetic, they share traits with their parents. If their traits are part cultural, they're even more likely than their parents to assimilate because they were born here and assimilated here. Where I think it becomes a problem is not that scenario, but the scenario where we have like balkanized ghettos, where people are essentially not assimilating into the culture because they have they kind of locked themselves in. But I do apologize though. I'm dying. I'm going to pass out in like 5 minutes.
No, I hear you. If you want, we can continue this conversation from where we have the next time you do call-ins. Would that be all right?
Sure, man. I just to state the obvious, I obviously disagree with you on a lot, but I see some room to maneuver here, so I think the conversation's worth having.
Yeah, I agree, and I respect your opinion, even though we respectfully disagree. And I just wanted to say I learn a lot from this channel, and I get a lot of fresh perspective from hearing you do your videos and your live streams, and I really appreciate them. Along with like your collabs with Sean, I really like that.
Yeah, man, Sean's good people. I really enjoy his company. He's a buddy. All right, well, Isaac, VTuber, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you too. Have a good one, Ryan.
You too, gang. Okay, so I'm going to start wrapping this up, gang, because I'm going to pass out.